Howdy, everybody, and welcome back to another GT3 replay. We're at round 6 for Circuit de la Sarthe in Le Mans with reverse grid. So we've got Piggins here on pole, getting ready to take us to a green flag race in here. For a slightly different format this race, we have a 15-minute long race instead of the 1-hour endurance race, which I'll explain a little bit as we head towards turn 1 now, with Piggins with already a comfortable lead over Petrol in second, myself in third, being challenged by Razor, who's had a very good start in the Porsche, coming through turn 1. And it believes that Petrol on these medium tyres, both of them opting for a medium tyre start, has got a bit more confidence at the moment, appearing to be challenging for the lead. We do know that that Corvette and the Lexus are two very good cars in a straight line, coming round now to Tete Rouge onto the first of the Mulsanne straights. And it's actually now myself with more confidence, starting on the soft tyres, looking to gain an early advantage here, as Petrol seems to have fallen back a bit. And you will also notice that this is another mixed lobby with the Pro and the Pro-Am class. So we've got Tom currently leading the Pro-Am race with a very healthy lead over War Eagle. And ATV rounding out the Pro-Am podium as it stands, coming down into the first of the Mulsanne chicanes as Piggins makes a mistake, which allows Petrol to now take over the race lead. So already we've seen the podium positions already swap round, but he took back in for slipstream to get another chance down to the second chicane. I believe we do have a spinner at the back, and it is Cobra, but no damage as it seems, so he can continue in the race without issue, but he will have a lot of work to do to get back towards the front. And coming into the second chicane, it's now the third different race leader in under 2 minutes of racing, as I now, on the soft tyres, seem to have taken advantage of my start and pulled ahead of the Corvette. However, the Corvette is not giving up. Back in the slipstream and already pulling alongside, even before we're halfway down the straight. And Petrol once again takes the lead back. This is just back and forth stuff, relentless here, coming down into Mulsanne corner for the first time, the heaviest braking zone by far on this lap. And everything just seemingly settling down now as Petrol builds a bit of a gap over myself and Piggins. Doug has managed to get back into a fourth position, overtaking Razor. Doug had to start last in the Pro category because of his lead in the championship. And coming down into Indianapolis corner, the McLaren seems to be a very good car on the high-speed bump. It's not notorious for its straight line speed. As I throw it up the inside, Petrol, given the space, sees the late move coming, but he manages to get the better traction on the outside, I believe. Well, sweeping around the outside there, it seems that Petrol was worried about being pinched on the inside, so relinquishes the lead. And yeah, I could barely keep up. Same as last race, basically. As Doug is now being challenged by Razor. This is great stuff, despite only having 5 Pro people in the category for this race. It is all kicking off right at the start. Everyone wanted to get one up over each other. Whereas the same cannot be said for Tom in the Pro-Am class, who seems to have a very comfortable lead. He's actually closer to challenging some of the Pro drivers for their positions. But at the moment, it seems like the mid-engine cars seem to be having a very good advantage at this point in the race, with 2 Porsches leading the Pro-Am category and a McLaren leading the Pro category. So, which is a bit of an unusual thing to see at this circuit. Normally it's a very straight line speed dependent circuit, and at the moment those in the straight line speed cars have started on harder compound tyres. I just don't seem to have the grip at the moment. And you see Troy, who was in the Pro-Am category lead of the championship before coming into this race, he had to start all the way down in 16th. He's already made it up to 11th. He's had a great start from the back of the grid. Unfortunately, it appears that Simon and Superboy do not have their liveries coming up on the replay. I have tried to fix the issue, but unfortunately their replays have not loaded after 4 or 5 attempts to load up the replay. So apologies for that, but it seems that most of the liveries do work as they should. And ATV now just starting to give War Eagle a bit more pressure as they come down onto the Mulsanne straight once again. Neither of these cars really known for their straight line speed. I believe the Nissan will be slightly better in the top end, so he will have more of a chance than the Porsche coming down to the first of the Mulsanne chicanes. When he backs out of it, he's waiting for another dose of slipstream down to the second chicane, although he closes up massively on the braking there. ATV seeming to have the confidence on the brakes to challenge for a potential overtake it very soon, as we see come back to the lead. Petrol and Piggins now fighting back and forth. Piggins had just claimed the second place, but with a maybe compromised exit, trying to go late on the brakes into the chicane, he's now allowed Petrol to slip back through into second place. And as we see in the background as well, Hair Razor now overtaking Doug, taking back the position that he lost at the start. And everyone in the pro category seems to be on the mediums apart from myself, which would explain why it is so bunched up at the moment that the straight line speed cars are not massively pulling away from the handling cars whilst we're all on the medium tyres, bar one. And as we cut back now to Superboy, who, if I remember correctly, was a big mover in this race, and he's already made up another 2 positions down the Mulsanne straight. So he is not waiting around at all, on the hard tyres as well, so he's got a lot of confidence. Le Mans, probably one of Superboy's favourite tracks, if not his favourite track in the entire game. So he's got a lot of confidence at the moment moving forwards and challenging already for the podium positions. His next target will be a podium position in the Pro-Am category, so already he is not even that far behind. And Piggins now seems to have taken Petrol, and Petrol has made a mistake. I believe we just cut away before we saw him going wide at Mulsanne corner. I caught that in the corner of my eye. So now he's got a lot of effort to put in now to try and get that position back and maybe challenge for the lead, but he's got to serve a penalty this lap, which will actually promote Tom into overtaking some of the pro drivers. I believe Doug has also served a penalty there as well, which is not ideal for his race because he is championship leader. He would want to extend that championship lead in the points, and at the moment he is not scoring as many as he would like compared to his other rivals. So Tom now moving up into 5th place overall in the race, and he should have the advantage through this section of the track. The Porsche, a very good handling car, you'd have to say, a very good all-rounder, but particularly in the handling sections. And you can see there with the dirty air from Petrol, he is just struggling to stick to the back of the Porsche as close as he was coming into the Porsche curves. But it seems that he has got a run now, but nothing doing into the first 4 chicanes. Superboy already extending that gap now over Simon. However, these two have had a very good race, starting towards the back of the grid, and they're already running 4th and 5th in class, if my math is correct on that one. But Simon is not having an easy time of it, as Quietbird is now sniffing the back of his, trying to gain another position. And everything just a little bit spread out towards the back. We got Fast Ginger in 12th, TDC in 13th. And we believe there's probably been a few collisions here, as 2 of the favourites for the championship in the Pro-Am category, Tyrone Colby and Bar 27, are both running at the back, so I believe they might have had a coming together on this lap. So this will be a very difficult race for them. Bar with a very handy car around this track. The Supra is probably the favourite car for this track, so we'll see how much ground he can gain from his escapades at the start of the race. And Cobra doing a good job to keep it consistent and try and close up to the back of the field. He's obviously been helped out by the incident, so he's not that far behind as what he was on lap 1. And cutting back to the lead as well, you can already see the soft tyres degrading as I have a track limits penalty, probably for Tete Rouge coming onto the first of the Mulsanne straights. So that will surely be a very encouraging sight for Piggins as he's now closing down with a slightly better tyre wear and the faster car in the straight line as well, and probably just the faster driver in general. So he was looking now to take the lead back. However, there is a big gap between the remaining drivers in the pro category. You see Petrol's made his way back past Tom, coming onto the second of the Mulsanne chicanes. And this is very close now between these four drivers. You have to say 3 of which are only for position. And Doug getting a very big swapper coming out of the chicane. The GTR, not one of the most stable cars on this traction. And Petrol using that low-end power of the Corvette to blast past him in the acceleration. So Petrol seeming to have regrouped a little bit. However, he does have another track limits penalty, but he has regrouped slightly and is trying to get back into those podium positions. And well, I say that, he's gone a bit deep again into Mulsanne corner, which will give Doug another invite. He's got another track limit penalty for that incident. And as I've just spotted on the track map, we do have a spinner. It is Barr on the hard tyres. So as one Supra is excelling on the hard tyres, it seems that Barr on his is not enjoying these conditions at all. So it's another spin for him. However, I would not count him out of this race just yet with the pace that Supra has shown in the practice leading up to this race. And coming through Arnage now, I will have to serve the track limits penalty, which will surely relinquish the lead to Piggums behind, and yes it does. Piggums now moves up into the lead, so another lead change in this race. We're only 2.5 laps into this race basically, and we've already had many changes for the lead, it has to be said. It's been a very interesting start to the race, and Petrol, after serving his track limits penalties, has now dropped back into the 6th place overall. And in the background we see that Superboy has already got into 2nd place in Pro-Am, so he has flown through the field so far, interrupting the battle between ATB and War Eagle. And in all of that chaos, ATB has passed War Eagle for 3rd place now in the Pro-Am category. And to round out the grid, we have Simon still running in P10, starting to build that gap over Quiet Bird just ever so slightly. Quiet Bird using all the track there to try and get a very good exit coming down to the 4 chicanes. Fast Ginger still running around in 12th, and TDC in 13th. Trone now in 14th. Cobra moving up into 15th after Bar's mistake, who runs 16th. So the battle for the lead is still quite close here, as Piggums has not been able to make a massive impression whilst he has been in the lead. Obviously, the soft tyres will still be working on my car, just not as effectively as they were. So he might be a little bit under pressure coming through Mulsanne, down the Mulsanne straight. But I believe he is in a very good position now, getting his harder tyres out of the way in the form of the mediums, and then saving his softer tyres for the end of the race. I believe he's in a very good position to take the win of this race. Even though we're only on lap 4, it seems that the grid is incredibly spaced out. It is a very long track, which means there's plenty of opportunities to make up time for the quicker drivers, and those who maybe aren't as confident to make a few mistakes here and drop a bit of time. So it is a very good track for spacing out the grid, which maybe is not what we want to see in terms of action. But Doug now just starting to break away from Tom and Petrol now. Same with Razor. These two are looking to extend their positions in the championship because they are both running 1st and 2nd, hence why they started 4th and 5th in the race on the reverse grid. So these two will be looking to build a bigger points margin to the rest of the grid. These two, apart from myself and a few others, have attended every single GT3 race so far this season, so they have, which explains why they have the healthy points gap. And you have to say, for only Tom's 2nd race in GTRC, he's doing a very good job in keeping up with the pro drivers. He is enrolled in the Pro-Am category, but this is very encouraging pace, so maybe in the future we can see him be promoted up to a higher level. And Razor just having a slight look into Mulsanne corner, but Doug covering that one off as well, although he has a big snap of oversteer which will not benefit his run down to Indianapolis. I believe the Nissan will just have the legs slightly on the Porsche as they come down the fourth back straight of the race. Razor now almost pushing Doug down the straight, coming up into one of the fastest corners on the track. It's not really a corner that you want to be this close to the car ahead because you will not be able to see much of the apex. But they both survived this lap, and Doug actually breaking away there as Razor, I believe, backed off slightly just to give himself a bit of breathing room so he didn't hit the back of Doug. And I've just caught a glimpse in the background. Superboy is gaining on the pro drivers here. He's got tremendous speed at the moment, has to be said, and I guess this is now a good time, whilst it is a little bit more settled down in the race, to explain why we have a 15-lap race instead of a hour-long endurance race, and that is because of coming up to this race we had fuel concerns that some of the cars that had to max out the RPM to get the straight line speed out of the car were going to be very tight on fuel. They would not be able to do the 5-lap minimum on each compounder tyre, which would have been a very big issue, because in the rules it says you have to use each racing compound, excluding the intermediates and the wets, for 5 laps in this race. So, although saying that, I have just pitted on lap 4 of the race, so maybe this rule got scrapped because of the length of this track and the tyre wear and fuel consumption around here being very hefty indeed. So as now the remaining grid now gets promoted at 1 position, bar Piggins, who was already ahead of me. And so yeah, that is why we have a 15-lap race, because of fuel concerns with cars that had to max out the RPM. However, those in the Supra or the M6 will have a very handy time against those of the drivers because of the fact that they can short shift their cars to get straight line speed out of them. They have a very high turbo pressure, which means that they can still have a lot of straight line speed whilst not using the maximum range of the revs in their car. So I think to balance it out, we have changed the rules slightly for this race. The 15 laps should still work out to about an hour's worth of racing, but it will just help those who have fuel concerns make an easier strategy decision for them, I believe. So just to give you a quick race rundown, we've got Piggins in the lead, having not pitted yet in this race. The only pit stop so far has been one driver. We've got Doug Barrow in second place, Hair Razor in third, Tom in fourth. However, that could soon be fifth as Petrol now shaping to move down the Mulsanne, second of the Mulsanne straight. And he has just about edged ahead there. So Petrol now in fourth, Tom in fifth, Superboy in sixth, ATB in seventh, Simon in eighth, Quietbird in ninth, Fast Ginger in 10th, myself in 11th after that pit stop onto the hard tyres, Trone in 12th, Cobra in 13th, TDC in 14th, and Bar in 15th. I believe we have lost someone from this race, and unfortunately I think it is War Eagle. He has had a few connection issues so far this season, and it seems to have not gotten any better for him, unfortunately. As we see now, Petrol now moving his way up into third place. So Razor maybe making a mistake out of that chicane, or maybe Petrol has really got the hammer down. Now finally getting those medium tyres up to temperature, although again he goes deep into Mulsanne corner. I do know from personal experience that Petrol likes to trail brake. He likes to have the rear of the car rotate through the corners, and I believe that just isn't working for him in the Mulsanne corner, with it being such a front limited corner. You really do have to have really strong front brakes to get the car slowed down for it, and I don't believe it's working at the moment. However, with a potentially superior exit because going deep and straightening up the corner, he has moved ahead again of Razor coming into Indianapolis. So I wouldn't carry him out of this race either, because that Corvette does also display some very good qualities around this track, and Petrol being a regular in that Corvette, he knows how to drive that car very quickly. So we will see how his progress is throughout the race. And Tom not dropping back too much from there. However, I believe he will now be looking over his shoulder to see Superboy, who is slowly gaining on him. Whilst all these drivers fight ahead of him, he is just putting in the lap times. He does have the fastest lap of the race at the moment at 3 minute 58.8. which is a very handy lap time. The average lap time around here is about 4 minutes, 1 second. So that is a very quick lap time. Obviously, a lot of time to make up around the lengthy lap of this place. And I believe ATB in the background did just serve a penalty, but he is still running in a very comfortable 3rd place in the Pro-Am category. And Simon still not able to shake Quiet Bird as they exit through the Porsche curves. It's a very tense race between these two at the moment. There's not really too much on-track action between these two, but they are both keeping each other very honest, as we see Air Razor now off his medium compounder tyres and coming in for probably a set of the hard tyres. It is a popular strategy choice to go for soft tyres in your last stint of the race because of the cooler track temperatures and potentially running less fuel in the race. So here he is now coming into his pit box, and Quiet Bird as well in the background. So him on the hard tyres, not liking sitting behind Simon anymore. He wants to get off those tyres. So I now am promoted up into 9th place, being the first one to stop. And I believe the undercut will be quite powerful at this track because, again, it is such a long lap. Having another lap over your rival to heat up the tyres will be very beneficial for you. However, it is quite difficult around here because of the nature of how high speed the track is. There's a lot of straights here, which means there isn't much opportunity to heat up the tyres. As we see, Superboy's potential first mistake of the race, he's got a track limit penalty on his old hard tyres. I believe he'll be looking to get rid of those soon because there is not much more incentive to use the hard tyres for longer than 5 laps, really. It is only really to maximise your fuel tank and actually use all of that fuel that you have from the start of the race. Because I believe that was the bigger concern coming into this race, that you would not have enough fuel if you pitted too early in the race. So it is an odd strategy decision from people like myself and Razor, who have potentially gone a bit too early on stopping for fuel, but we'll see how it plays out if we can save enough fuel on this stint and make lives for ourselves a bit easier. We just see Piggins now really starting to stretch the legs now that he is on his own without any hassle from behind. He is starting to pick up the pace as well. He's only a 10th off the fastest lap on his personal best on lap 3. So he is by no means a slouch out there. He is definitely bringing his A game to this race. I believe he will pit at the end of this lap to change over onto hard tyres, it is very likely. Doug still running around in 2nd place with a slight bit of pressure from Petrol behind. Tom still leading the Pro-Am category with Superboy behind. ATB in 3rd in the Pro-Am, 6th overall. Simon in 7th. Fast Ginger now promoted into 8th after all the pit stops. Myself in 9th. Razor comes out in 10th, all on his own, which is probably what he wanted to see, so he can get some clean laps in whilst he brings the tyres up to temperature. Trone in 11th. Quiet Bird in 12th. TDC in 13th. Cobra is in 14th, and Bar still running in 15th there after making an earlier stop compared to his other Pro-Am drivers. However, I mean, save of the race so far. That was almost curtains for his race there, but a very good job to hold on to it coming out of the first of the Mulsanne chicanes. So we will watch to see what Piggins does. I believe he will pit at the end of this lap. It would seem like he does not have enough fuel for one more lap. However, well, I say that the fuel has just flashed into the red zone, and yes, he is boxing this lap. So very awkward pit lane here to get right. You do have to slow down for the chicane before the AI takes over. So this could catch a few people out, especially if they don't cut across into the pit lane entry early enough. They could get a very severe penalty of 3 seconds. And I believe that this is, well, you can see with just the fuel that everyone's using, no one can go longer than 6 laps here. So it is a big group of cars coming into the pit lane. Simon, Fast Ginger will all have to come in to change their tyres over. So this will be interesting to see where I come out in relation to Piggins and the rest of the pro drivers, because this gap does seem quite close. It is a very long pit lane around Le Mans, so it could be that I inherit the lead on the warmer hard tyres. As you see, Pigham's now topping up his fuel. He hasn't put in a full tank of fuel, so I believe he will have gone onto soft tyres. So that is an interesting choice, because I believe he would have gone onto hard tyres there on his lower fuel to maybe shorten his stint and then maximise his stint on the softer compound at the end of the race. But he's gone for his soft stint in the middle of the race, so he wants to continue building that gap over the rest of the pro field. And unfortunately for myself, the early stop has not worked. However, that was to be expected with the harder compound of tyres. Doug re-emerges in third. He's also put on the hard tyre. Petrol in fourth. Tom in fifth. Razor is sixth. Superboy in seventh. ATB in eighth. Quiet Bird in ninth. And I believe that is everyone who pitted. I think Simon did pit as well on that lap. And Fast Ginger as well. He is also pitted for the hard tyres. There's still cars coming into the pit lane all the time now. And it believes that the hard tyres are proving to be a very popular tyre for this middle stint of the race. Everyone wanted to use the mediums or the softs for the start, bar a handful of drivers. And now they seem to be wanting to use the hard tyres just to get them out of the way now, with myself having a big swapper there. And there is still the threat of rain. We do have random weather assigned to these races, and Le Mans is one of the few tracks in the game that does have weather that can play an effect on the race. So it isn't done and dusted if we do get rain at any point during the race. However, I believe none of us did longer than a 20-minute stint in practice for this race, so no one has seen how quickly the weather can change going forward in this race. So whether we see any in the second half, we will have to wait and see. And Superboy now making his way past Razor on the medium compound tyres now. So he will be progressively getting faster and faster throughout this race. Obviously, as we mentioned before, he has used his hard tyres already. So he's now looking to gain even more time. He's probably going to go even faster than his previous fastest lap. But this is looking like he is in the hot seat to take the Pro-Am victory, at least. And Petrol is in the gravel at Mulsanne corner. So another mistake at that corner. That is the place that he will have very poor memories about when he thinks back about this race, because it has just not gone right for him at that corner whatsoever. And I do apologise to Petrol to keep bringing up his Mulsanne corner shenanigans, but yeah, it's just not gone well for him today. And I think with that Corvette, it is a very handy car around this track, so he will be looking to make amends for that mistake as well. But he has let Superboy go back ahead, and I believe that Super will be a very difficult car to overtake if he gets close enough again, because of the straight line speed of that Supra. But this is the closest battle on track, I believe. Everyone is spaced out a little bit. We've got Quiet Bird and TDC racing each other. TDC is, well, he was gaining, but he's going to have to serve a track limits penalty. He is on, I believe Quiet Bird, he is not on his out lap. He's already done a lap, but TDC is on his hotter tyres. So he should, in theory, have more grip. So he may be able to catch back up again. He's got Simon behind pursuing him in that BMW M6, another handy car around this track, another short shifting car with a good handling for a front engine car, it has to be said, and is no slouch in a straight line either. So he'll be looking to get back into the top 10 overall and potentially take the top 5 finish in the Pro-Am category. Fast Ginger still running around in 12th, Tron in 13th, Bar in 14th with a track limit penalty to serve pretty soon, and Cobra running around in 15th, refusing to give up in this race after his mistake early on in the race, which is the kind of persistence I like to see. And Piggins is, without question, feeling very comfortable on these soft contacts at the moment. He goes nearly 7 tenths faster than the previous personal best in the first sector. And he's now looking to build that gap. I believe he will be able to see the positions changing. There's plenty of time to look at the position board whilst you're on the Mulsanne straight, and I believe he is watching the position board change as he sees some of the faster cars behind him starting to make progress through the field. And I believe he'll be looking at this man, Superboy. It will obviously not affect his position in the pro category because he will still finish ahead of, well, he will still finish in the position that he is if he gets overtaken by Superboy, because Superboy is in a different category to him. He's in a different class in the field. But every driver would like to take, if they are going to take a victory in the fastest category in the group, they would like to take overall victory as well as class victory. So he'll be looking to see where Superboy is at the moment, because he will want to just build that margin. He does have his hard tyres yet to use, if I remember correctly. He has used his mediums and is now on the soft, so he does need to take advantage of this, because it's such a long lap, and with many traction zones and the twisty final sector as well, the compounded tyre that you're on does play massively into how quick you are around this race. But everything just a little bit spaced out at the moment. Doug will be fairly happy with where he's running at the moment, taking a bit of an unusually tight line coming into Mulsanne corner, but he will be happy that he is outscoring Razor in this race as it stands, and only losing minimal points to Piggins and myself ahead. Superboy just going a little bit deep into that corner, and the two Porsches behind starting to fight each other. Razor seemingly not enjoying the middle stints of these races. It does seem to be a trend that he just, his confidence and his concentration just seems to waver a little bit in the middle of the race before he regroups towards the end. So I believe he is now struggling a little bit on these hard tyres. However, he is not out of contention at all. It is just a bit inconvenient for him that he is sat behind one of the Pro-Am drivers. But, I mean, Tom and Superboy are easily the class of the Pro-Am field today, because they are miles ahead of the closest, the next closest Pro-Am driver. ATB having a very quiet race, but it is another strong performance from him as well. It has to be said, as he is seemingly, I mean, it's only him in shot when he's on the track. There's only just Quietbird and TDC rounding Arnage corner, and TDC has done, well, he was gaining again, but he has served a track limits penalty. Both of them have, and I believe TDC has served a more severe penalty. So once again, TDC just drops back, but he is displaying some good pace at the moment in that Alfa Romeo, which is not a thing I'd normally see around this track, because the Alfa Romeo wouldn't really be a car I'd choose for a high-speed track. But he is doing a very good job at the moment, just going on a slightly alternative strategy to the rest of the drivers in his field. He's obviously running with a lot less fuel than those around him. So we'll see how this plays out, because I believe he will have potentially his hard tyres at the end of the race, so he can go on a very long stint if he can save the fuel. Simon's still running around in 11th, Fast Ginger on his own in 12th. Similar situation to ATB, he's just having a very quiet but consistent race, just scoring those points, which is what you need to do. Just the consistency is key, and he actually uses a lot of the track width there coming into the Ford chicane, trying to prioritise his entry speed, which is something that we see in a lot of the esports drivers. However, it is very difficult to do, and it's very concerning if you get it wrong, because you can hit the end of the curb divider that separates the pit lane entry and the track, which can unsettle the car and potentially spin you into the pit wall. So we got Trone in 13th, Bar running around in 14th, and Cobra in 15th as well. Still putting in the lap times. And Piggins' soft tyres not looking great. His front tyres seem to be wearing worse, which is what you would expect in a front-engine car. But he has still got a very healthy gap at the moment. Myself still running around in second on the hard tyres. And I believe the McLaren was a surprisingly good car for this track because not many people expected it to be that quick coming into this race. However, I believe a mid-season update to the game changed the bop slightly, and the McLaren seemed to be a very handy car on the high-speed bop. Because of its really long gear ratios, it was able to maximise in the slipstream when it was in the slipstream of another car. And as well, with its very long first gear, it did have very good traction coming out of the slow-speed corners. So that is potentially playing into my hands at the moment, as a lot of the drivers are on their harder compounded tyres in this stint. And Doug now starting to come under pressure from Superboy behind. That Nissan already, as I've mentioned, a very weak car on its traction. It does not feel very comfortable for my personal driving style. And we see thing as well, so he is trying to save a bit of fuel here, trying to maybe get one more lap out of these tyres. And I mean, it's not even a contest between those two cars. Superboy sweeps around the outside before they approach Indianapolis. He will have a track limits penalty to serve, but I believe it won't be too much of an issue for him. Medium tyres, sliding his way into the gravel, he can quite easily gain that time back up again. So an overall podium for Troy after starting in 16th in this race is nothing to sniff at whatsoever. This has been a fantastic race from him so far. Doug does slip back ahead going towards the Porsche curves, but I mean, Troy is sitting very pretty right now. He can almost see, you can definitely see on the track map how far away the overall victory is, and it is not far away at all. I believe when he uses the soft tyres at the end of his stint, he will have a very quick car towards the end. He might be several seconds a lap faster. So we do need to pay attention to him. Petra running around in 5th place on the harder tyres, not enjoying those tyres at all. However, he does thankfully have his soft tyres yet to use, so he will regain some of that speed towards the end, as I am diving into the pit lane off the hard compound tyres to go for, I believe it will be my medium stint. So doing 6 laps at the end of the mediums, which is going to be a bit touch and go. And I heard some tyres squealing there. I don't know if that would have been Doug or Superboy. They both seem to have very unstable back ends as it stands. And Superboy just backing out of it a little bit. It is a bit of an awkward corner to try and overtake into turn 2, because of obviously turn 1 being a flat-out right-hander. It is a bit awkward to try and set yourself up. However, he does seem to have a lot more confidence at the moment, coming down towards Tete Rouge and the S's section. And Tom actually building that gap over Razor now, so he seems to have adapted to the hard tyres a little bit better, and he is setting himself in for a very comfortable 2nd place in the Pro-Am category. It's been a very good race from him so far. He has not squandered his reverse grid pole. I believe he did have reverse grid pole, and he's not squandered it whatsoever. And as I see on the timing tower, Superboy has once again flown past Doug on the straights, heading into the first of the Mulsanne corners. However, he has left himself a bit tight. That has compromised his entry and will compromise his exit as well. He goes a bit wide out of the chicane, which might give him a penalty. The penalties at Sarthe are a bit of a grey zone, and yes, he does. Running outside the white line, but if you run beyond the imaginary line that follows the curve around the outside, you will get a penalty for that. If you're not on the curve and you are wider than the curve, you will get penalties for that, and he has got another one, which is not what he wants to see right now. I wish I could tell you the delta between Piggins and Superboy at the moment. However, it does not show up on the replay. It only shows up if you are actually in the race. So Superboy now just still pushing on. However, in his final stint, he will really want to clean up his racing lines and really get some fast lap times in now. However, I believe on the soft tyres that will just give him natural confidence to do so. But I mean, even with the penalty, he has already gapped Doug in that part of the track. Doug running very close on his fuel, with still over a third of the lap to do. So Doug will just be keeping an eye on that. Maybe trying to save a bit of fuel through the twistier sections of the track where you don't need outright power. Petro still running around in fourth. I believe he is gaining slightly on these two for his earlier mistakes in Mulsanne corner particularly. Seventh in his third place for the Pro-Am category, rounding out the podium. Quiet Bird with a bit of a resurgence recently. He has been putting in some very good lap times, and he is actually challenging TDC. Unfortunately, I can't quite remember what tyres he has used throughout this race, but depending on what he uses towards the end, he might even be on soft tyres for his last stint. So this will be quite interesting between these two to see how it equals out. ATB will have to serve a track limits penalty there. I believe both of them will be in the pit lane this lap, so we'll see what tyres they are on. Myself in ninth, after after coming into the pit lane to put on my final set of tyres, doing a stint on the mediums. Simon not far behind in 10th, Fast Ginger in 11th, Tron in 12th, TDC in 13th, Bar in 14th, and Cobra still in 15th, and unfortunately War Eagle disconnecting early on in the race. And Doug now very marginal on his fuel, only 2% left in the tank, but not really that much wear on those hard tyres, so he has been very kind to them. He is now coming into the pit lane. I will cut away just a momentarily because it is a very long pit lane. We'll wait to see what tyres Doug puts on. And the last lap for Troy was a personal best, a 58.4. If the replay is showing me that correctly, sometimes it does bug out with showing us what lap times are faster. And I believe he is gaining on Piggins. Piggins' last lap was a 59.8, so Troy is definitely closing in here. So the pressure is on for overall victory. Both of these guys are almost set to take the win for their respective classes. Whichever class beats the other is still up in the air at the moment. And there seems to be a few pit stops on that lap. I'm promoted back up into 5th place. Doug putting his soft tyres on for this last stint, so he'll be very much one to watch towards the end of this race. He's been saving himself for the end to use the softs on the cooler track temperatures. Like I said, we've only got 5 laps left in this race, so roughly about 20 minutes left. Razor coming out as well on soft tyres. He's come out in 8th place without traffic. ATB as well on the soft tyres. So that a lot of people going for the same strategy here. Trone has been promoted up ahead of Quietbird. However, I believe he's only done 1 stop so far this race. So he will surely have to relinquish that position when he comes into the pit lane, potentially at the end of this lap. With a Quietbird as well on his soft tyres. TDC on I believe a 1 lap old set of soft tyres, so he has already used his trying to get an undercut on these guys. However, I believe it will be very difficult to get 6 laps out of those soft tyres for TDC, but we will see where he is. Obviously TDC uses a wheel to play this game, and from my personal experience in this race, I struggled to get 4 laps out of the soft tyres before they were starting to fall off. So maybe that is just the difference between using a controller and using a wheel in terms of tyre wear. But we'll see how he progresses. He might have to do 1 last stop at the end of the race, which might not be a bad thing, as he could push for fastest lap in this race. I believe he does have a big enough gap if Simon is... Well, I believe Simon has actually done his final stop in the race, so he would definitely lose that position to Simon if he were to do a final stop to push for fastest lap. Bar as well on his soft tyres. He will want to definitely be watched for fastest lap in this race. The Supra being a very handy car, and Bar being one of the fastest drivers in the Pro-Am category, one of the championship favourites. Cobra as well, also on a new set of soft tyres going towards the end of the race. And Piggins now will surely have to pit. Those tyres are looking extremely second-hand, and that will probably be feeling very horrible through that section of the track. So I believe he will have to pit. I'm fairly confident about that. It just depends on where he comes out in relation to Superboy. because Superboy does have to come in as well. He does have to make one more stop, so he will not get the lead of this race through strategy, undercut and overcut, but he does not have enough fuel, so he will have to pit as well. It just depends on how much fuel they will have to take on board. I believe Piggins has saved, yes he has saved a tiny bit more fuel, which could pay dividends towards the end of this race. We do not know how it's going to pan out at the moment. Petrol barely making it into the pit lane with just 2% of fuel. Tom coming in as well, so the remaining drivers in this race are now cycling through their final pit stop in the race. And you see myself now leading the cars who have already made that final stop, with Doug in a net P3, I believe. It depends on how speedy those two have been on their final stint. Pigham's now emerging from the pit lane on the hard tyres, so he has saved his hards for the end of the race, potentially trying to go harder on the tyres, push hard on those tyres with slightly less fuel to try and give himself a bit more pace compared to those others who were on the hards as well. So I have now been promoted back up into second place. However, Superboy is by no means out of this. He could definitely still get back the second place that he had in pit stop cycles. And Doug and Petrol emerging very close next to each other. Petrol on brand spanking new tyres, and already you can see the grip difference between Petrol and Doug. It does appear that Petrol does have a bit more pace than Doug around this track. However, he just has a little bit less confidence coming into braking zones, it just seems. And I believe the Corvette is a bit of a, since it has more straight line speed, it is a bit of a harder car to get stopped for the corner. Tom coming into the pits on that previous lap as well. He's put his soft tyres on for the end of the race, settling in now for potentially P2. I don't like to give him commentator's curse, but I believe this is looking like a very comfortable position for him. Razor in P7. I believe this is P5 for the Pro category. And ATB rounding out the podium for the Pro-Am category. With Quiet Bird still in pursuit, it has to be said. I believe these two could bunch up slightly. It depends how good ATB's pace is on his soft tyres. But he does have another track that's 27 and going a little bit deep, but nothing too serious through there. But he does have time in hand, which I think will be very handy for him. It'll be very motivating for him just to settle down a little bit, because he does have time in hand. He can afford to lose. By the looks of that, he can afford to lose a second per lap and still hold on to this. So he has got the luxury of time on his side. And coming back to Superboy, not waste any time. He is already cutting down the gap between myself and him. And obviously, me being on the medium tyres, I am going to have good pace for the longevity of the stint, but at the moment, whilst these tyres are still relatively new between both cars, this is not looking good for my position. And Piggins now will surely be looking over his shoulder on those hard tyres. He needs to adapt his racing line to compensate for the lack of grip, especially through Indianapolis and Arnage, two of the most difficult corners, one difficult for turning grip and one difficult for traction. So we ride on board with Superboy coming into Arnage corner now. And this will give him a very good chance. He will have the slipstream coming down towards the Porsche curves. Not a traditional overtaking opportunity, however with the Supra I think anything's possible around this track. And yeah, you can see that the slipstream paying dividends for his straight line speed, and he moves up into second place overall, still maintaining that Pro-Am category lead, but myself not fighting it too hard. There's not really much point in this. I am still running in a very handy second place for myself in the Pro category, so there's not really much point losing time fighting him, and then maybe trying to use him to catch up to the back of Piggins if I can hold on to the slipstream. But already Superboy has extended that gap through the Porsche curve. Very difficult to follow another GT3 car through that section of the track with the downforce. both the McLaren and the Supra do tend to understeer in their driving style, which is a bit unusual for a mid-engine car like the McLaren. But the gap already building between us two. Doug and Petrol continue to fight for the remaining position on the podium in the Pro category. I believe Petrol will have a very good chance now coming through turn 1 and up into the braking of turn 2. He's trying to set himself up to try and slingshot his way back to get himself better straight line braking, and Doug has gone a bit deep there. Petrol looking for the switchback. He gets the power down very nicely on his softer tyres, but they're still side by side here. It's good respect shown between these two to give each other space through such an awkward high-speed part of the track. And I believe that Petrol is looking for a switchback into Tete Rouge, which is not normally where you'd see a car trying an overtake. I would always be worried about, if I was the car on the inside, pushing the car on the outside off, because it is such an awkward corner that with the understeer you could just drag both of you off the track there. So sensibly Petrol waits for another overtaking opportunity into the first of the Mulsanne chicanes. And you can hear from the tyre squealing that Superboy is pushing hard. He is on for another fastest lap of the race, trying to take it back from Piggins. And Piggins is doing a good job at the moment on these hard tyres. He has just done his out lap, which is always the hardest lap on the hard tyres, I would probably say. So he is doing a good job at the moment. He is trying to just keep it consistent. He can't push outright because he does not have the speed for that at the moment. But as long as he just bleeds a little bit of time each lap, he will be very comfortable at the end. He will not lose to Supra. You can see there the gap, the physical gap on the racetrack is very large, as there's almost half of the straight leading to the Mulsanne corner between the two of them. So he's just got to keep it calm and just try and basically just keep the gap. He will have the Pro win almost wrapped up with only 2.5 laps left in the race, so I believe he will be very happy with that. But every driver would like to take an overall victory, which I believe is why Troy has been pushing so hard this race, is because this is his first chance to get overall victory of the season. And Petrol now making that position ahead of Doug, presumably into one of the Mulsanne chicanes, and already building that gap over Doug. So Petrol now moving up into completing the podium for the Pro category. Doug now running in P4. Tom still having a very lonely race in P2 for the Pro-Am category. However, he does have a track limits penalty. Not really going to affect his race too much, but it's always annoying to do. And Razor just rounding out the drivers for the Pro class at the moment. Still going for a personal best lap here, so he still has pace to show in this race. His tyres are looking very warm though. Razor is one of the more aggressive drivers, known for his late braking and aggressive turning. Despite being on a wheel, his tyre wear is often comparable to the controller drivers. So that gives you an indication of how aggressive he is. However, this aggressive speed is coming back into his favour towards the end, as I believe the gap between Tom and Razor is closing up slightly. It obviously will have done after Tom served his penalty. ATB again with another track limits penalty, running around in third for the Pro-Am podium. And again, Quietbirds just making those small gains, but nothing too serious for ATB to be concerned about at the moment. TDC running around in 10th place, and as I predicted earlier, those soft tyres are taking a battering, trying to do 6 laps in a mid-engine car on those soft tyres is not easy at all. Simon running around in 5th place, however, he does look like he's maybe had a mistake through there. He's taking it a bit easy, and Fast Ginger seems to have put the hammer down a bit. Fast Ginger has pitted later on in this race, just checking the tyre graphic. He has pitted slightly later in this race, so we could still see a change for P11 in this race. Every time I see Fast Ginger do that, I think he's coming into the pit lane, but no, he is actually just using the extra track, which is entitled to do so. Bar still circulating in 13th, however, with a Bar just set a 3-minute 56.8 on that last lap. That is a very quick lap. I believe that will be the fastest lap. Well, the fastest lap Bar Superboy has done that 55.4. A big swapper for Bar coming through the end of the Porsche curves. But that is fantastic pace from Bar. It's just a shame that he's had a few incidents this race, because with that pace he could have taken a podium position in the Pro-Am category, which is just a bit unfortunate to see, but at least it is encouraging pace leading up into the final 3 rounds of the season, I believe, after this race. Cobra is still circulating in 14th. He has refused to give up. And I have just noticed this as well. We are down to 14 runners. So I'm unsure as to who has left. I will have to check back with that later. Well, actually, now, just remembering, I believe it is Trone, because I haven't seen him for quite a while. So Trone has left the race, whether that be through disconnect or just a general annoyance with the race. But I believe it will be a disconnect. We do sometimes struggle with connection issues during these league races. And Superboy already in striking distance, has to be said. He will have the slipstream by the end of the lap. And this could be a very close fight between these two, because Piggers will not want to give up. After leading the race from pretty much lap 3 to this point, he will not want to give up this position. But you can just see the difference in grip between the soft and the hard tyre. Superboy already sniffing the bumper of Piggins. And you just see there as well, just the traction that he gets out of that corner. And Piggins trying to hold him very tight to the inside there, trying to compromise his approach to the Porsche curves. But the Lexus just cannot stay alongside the Supra. He has tucked back in for some slipstream, and he is gaining slightly through towards the Porsche curves. But you can just see there the different approach between the two tyre compounds. Troy is able to stretch his legs through that section of track. So Troy now heading for overall victory as well. He has done a last to first drive with just over 1 lap left in the race. And I mean, it's like, I don't know how many times that has been done in the history of GTRC, that a driver has started last and finished first. But we still have 1 more lap left, so anything can still happen with Piggins and Troy. There could be a few more mistakes towards the end of the race, but at the moment it is looking very good for Superboy as he crosses the line to start the final lap of the race. And you can just see there the pace of Piggins, 5 seconds down on his personal best. That just shows you how much the hard tyres and the battling just kills his speed. It is just not worked out for him, unfortunately. I don't believe he could have done anything differently though, because he's run a pretty much faultless race. I am still circulating in a P2 for the Pro category, 3rd position overall, so it's not been a bad showing from the McLaren this race. Not really one of the favourites. You'd expect one of the front engine cars that has notorious straight line speed to be running up towards the front, so it has been a solid race from myself. Petrol running around in 4th. He's made a good recovery from his earlier excursions in the race. He has got a track that's balanced to serve, however, I believe he does have enough of a gap that it will be no issue with him and Doug. Doug will be content, I think. I'm trying to find the right word. I think he'll be content with the fact that he is outscoring Razor as it stands, outscoring the guy closest to him in the GT3 standings. So he'll be happy that he is running around in a P4 for the Pro category. Tom, I would be very happy with my performance if I was Tom. It has been a very solid race from him. I don't believe I've seen him make a mistake all race. You'll have to confirm that by going back and seeing if he's had a track limit excursion anywhere. But he has had a pretty much faultless race and he's been challenging the Pro drivers throughout the whole race. And Razor running around in P7. It's just not worked out for him today, unfortunately. I don't believe the Porsche is a very suitable car for this track when the pro category of drivers is so close in terms of skill level. But the Porsche, it just is not a favoured car for this track, which is why, again, I believe Tom has done a very good job this race. ATB still circulating in P8. He has managed to fend off the pursuit of Quiet Bird as it stands. The gap has come down, you can notice from this camera shot. But it's not going to be enough for Quiet Bird. I don't think he can really challenge unless if ATB gets a penalty. I don't think he can close this gap down. TDC doing a very good job to keep the car on the track. And this is a very good strategy from him because he was not running in the top 10 before the final cycle of pit stops had gone round. So for him to get these tyres this far into the race and make it work as well on this strategy, it's been a very good effort from him. But you can just see the soft tyre wear is horrendous for a car like a mid-engine car that does wear out the rears heavily. You can see the rear left is almost gone. It's down to its last fifth of performance. Simon still holding off Fast Ginger. These two have reached a bit of a stalemate between the pair of them. However, I believe Fast Ginger has done a very good race as well. The Lance are not really a preferred Group 3 car, so for him to be this close to a top 10 finish still is a very good effort from him. It's not really a car that I would choose for a high-speed track. But still running around in 13th, unfortunately a race of what could have been for him with his pace demonstrated. However, it is just, hopefully if he takes any positives from this race, it is just encouraging to see that he is still one of the fastest drivers in the Pro-Am category. And Cobra, I mean, he has had great persistence this race. He has not really been involved in much of the action. As we see, Superboy wins the race, taking Pro-Am and the overall victory. Piggins in second place, myself in third. Petrol around the final corner to finish in fourth place. Doug in fifth. Tom holding off Razor to finish in second place for the Pro-Am category. However, it will be a sixth place overall, which is a very good result for him in only his second race so far. Razor finishes in seventh, rounding out P5 for the Pro category. And Quiet Bird and ATB and Quiet Bird have swapped positions. As I say that, the commentator's curse, ATB's tyres have fallen off the cliff at the end of this race by the looks of it. Quiet Bird snatches 8th place, rounded out the podium positions for the Pro-Am category. ATB, heartbreak at the end, considering he was running in the podium positions for the Pro-Am category all race. And on the final lap, it changes hands. TDC just hanging on for a top 10 finish, a very good strategy from him. Simon in 11th, Fast Ginger in 12th. Very good race from those three. And as we wait for the final drivers to circulate towards the end of the race, I mean, for Troy, it has been a very good race, it has to be said. Going from last to first in that. And yeah, almost a faultless race. Just a few track limit penalties. But apart from that, there's not really much you can call into question about his race, really. And Barr once again pushing hard in that Supra. I believe he's going for a late race personal best lap time. I believe it will be very hard to eclipse Troy's 55.4, but as we see him now approaching the Ford chicanes, unfortunately it's just not worked out for Barr today, but he does round the final corner to take the 13th place. Every position does score points, so it is worth carrying on finishing the race. And as we see, the most persistent man in the server, Cobra, finishes the race in 14th. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for watching.